Have you ever loved someone so deeply, that even on their worst day, you still chose them? Not because they were perfect, but because your love decided not to be conditional. I still remember the day I first saw her. It wasn't a perfect movie scene. There was no slow motion, no dramatic music, just a simple moment, but something about it felt different. I didn't know then that loving her would become the most beautiful, and sometimes the most challenging, journey of my life. In the beginning, everything felt easy. We laughed at the smallest things, stayed up late talking about dreams, and promised each other a forever that seemed so natural. Back then, love felt like a feeling, something that just happened without effort. But time has a way of revealing the deeper layers of love. There came days when we didn't understand each other. Days when silence replaced laughter. Days when the person I loved felt like a stranger standing right in front of me. And in those moments, I realized something powerful. Unconditional love is not built in perfect moments, it is built in the imperfect ones. I learned that loving your spouse unconditionally means choosing them even when it's hard. Not when everything is going right, but especially when everything feels like it's falling apart. It's waking up one day and saying, I choose you, even when your emotions don't feel as strong as they once did. There was a moment when she was at her lowest. Life had weighed heavily on her, and she wasn't the same cheerful person I had fallen in love with. She was distant, quiet, and broken in ways I couldn't fully understand. And I had a choice: walk away because things weren't easy anymore, or stay and love her through the storm. That's when I understood what unconditional love truly means. It's not about fixing your spouse. It's about standing beside them while they find their way back to themselves. It's about saying, you don't have to be perfect for me to love you. Because the truth is, none of us are perfect. We all carry flaws, fears, and scars. And love, real love, embraces all of it. I won't pretend forgiveness is easy. There were times we hurt each other, words said in anger, misunderstandings that created distance. But every time we chose to forgive, we chose to rebuild. Forgiveness became the bridge that kept us connected when everything else tried to pull us apart. Unconditional love is not blind. It sees the flaws, the mistakes, the broken pieces, and still decides to stay. Over time, I realized that love is not about holding on to who your spouse used to be. People change. Life changes us. Challenges shape us. And unconditional love grows with that change. It doesn't resist it, it embraces it. We stopped trying to go back to how things were and started focusing on growing together into something stronger. And that's the beauty of it. Because unconditional love is not about perfection, it's about commitment. It's about choosing your spouse every single day, in every version of who they become. Today, when I look at her, I don't just see the person I fell in love with. I see the struggles we've overcome, the tears we've shared, the battles we've fought side by side. And I realize, that kind of love is rare. It's not the kind of love that fades when things get difficult. It's the kind that deepens. So if you ask me what it means to love your spouse unconditionally, I'll tell you this. It means loving them not just for who they are on their best days, but for who they are on their worst. It means staying when it's easier to leave. It means forgiving when it's easier to hold on to pain. It means growing together when life tries to pull you apart. Because in the end, unconditional love is not just about saying, I love you. It's about proving it, every single day. In the beginning of every love story, everything feels effortless. The smiles come naturally, the conversations flow without thinking, and the connection feels almost magical. You don't have to try to love your spouse, it just happens. It's driven by emotion, excitement, and the thrill of discovering someone new. In those early moments, love feels like something you fall into, something beyond your control. But as time passes, that intense emotional spark begins to settle. Life steps in with its responsibilities, stress, misunderstandings, and unexpected challenges. The butterflies are not always there, and the excitement is not always as strong. This is the point where many people begin to question their love, because they were taught to believe that love is only a feeling. When the feeling fades, they assume the love is gone. What they don't realize is that this is where real love begins. Loving your spouse unconditionally means understanding that love is not just about how you feel in a moment, but about the decisions you make every single day. It's choosing to stay kind when you're frustrated, choosing to listen when you'd rather walk away, choosing to support them even when you don't fully understand what they're going through. There will be days when your spouse is not at their best. Days when they are distant, tired, or overwhelmed. In those moments, your feelings might not guide you toward love. You might feel hurt, ignored, or even disconnected. But unconditional love means you don't let temporary emotions control your commitment. Instead, you make a conscious choice to love them anyway. It's in the quiet acts, checking in on them, offering patience, being present, that this choice becomes real. Love becomes less about grand gestures and more about consistent decisions. It becomes something steady, something intentional. And over time, these choices create something far deeper than fleeting emotions. They build trust, security, and a bond that cannot be easily broken. There comes a moment in every love story when the illusion of perfection quietly fades away. In the beginning, you tend to see your spouse through a lens that highlights everything beautiful and overlooks the flaws. Their habits seem charming, their quirks feel unique, and even their imperfections appear insignificant. But as time moves forward, reality gently steps in, revealing the parts of them that are not so easy to admire. You begin to notice the small things, the way they react under stress, the habits that frustrate you, the differences in thinking that lead to misunderstandings. And without even realizing it, a subtle desire begins to grow inside you, the desire to change them, to fix what you believe is wrong, to shape them into the version of a partner you once imagined. But unconditional love does not work that way. Loving your spouse deeply means accepting that they are a complete person, not a project to be improved. They come with their own past, their own struggles, their own ways of coping with life. Not every flaw needs correction, and not every difference needs to be turned into a problem. There was a time when I caught myself trying to do exactly that, pointing out what could be better, suggesting how things should be different, believing I was helping. But instead of bringing us closer, it slowly created distance. Because the more you try to fix someone, the more they begin to feel like they are not enough. Acceptance, on the other hand, creates space for love to breathe. It means looking at your spouse and saying, I see you as you are, and I still choose you. It's understanding that perfection was never the foundation of your love, connection was. When you stop focusing on what needs to be changed, you start appreciating what already exists. This doesn't mean ignoring serious issues or avoiding growth. It means choosing your approach with compassion instead of control. It means supporting your spouse as they grow in their own time, rather than forcing them into change. Because sometimes, the most powerful way to love someone is not by changing them, but by accepting them completely, even in the parts that are not easy to love. Every love story is tested, not in the moments of joy, but in the moments of weakness. It's easy to stand beside your spouse when life is going well, when they are confident, happy, and full of energy. In those times, love feels light and natural, almost effortless. But real love reveals itself when those strengths begin to fade, when your spouse is no longer the person they usually are. There will be days when they feel overwhelmed by life, when pressure from the outside world weighs heavily on their shoulders. Days when they lose confidence, when their smile becomes rare, and when even simple conversations feel distant. In those moments, they may not know how to express what they are going through. They may withdraw, become quiet, or even push you away without meaning to. It's in these moments that unconditional love is truly tested. Standing beside your spouse in their weakest moments means choosing presence over distance. It means not taking their struggles personally, even when their behavior feels confusing or hurtful. Instead of reacting with frustration, you respond with patience. Instead of stepping back, you step closer. There was a time when I didn't understand this. When she pulled away, I thought it meant something was wrong between us. I questioned the connection we had, wondering if love was fading. But over time, I realized that her distance was not about a lack of love, it was about her internal battle, something she was trying to face in her own way. That realization changed everything. I stopped trying to demand explanations and started offering quiet support. Sometimes love didn't look like words or solutions. Sometimes it looked like sitting beside her in silence, letting her know she wasn't alone even when she couldn't speak. It looked like small gestures, checking in, being available, and reminding her through actions that I was still there. Standing beside your spouse during their weakest moments requires strength of your own. It asks you to be steady when they are not, to hold on when they feel like letting go, and to believe in them even when they struggle to believe in themselves. Because love is not just about sharing happiness, it is also about carrying each other through the weight of difficult times. No matter how strong a relationship is, there will always be moments where pain finds its way in. Two people, no matter how deeply they love each other, will eventually hurt one another. It may not always be intentional. Sometimes it's words spoken in anger, sometimes it's silence when there should have been comfort, and sometimes it's misunderstandings that slowly create distance between two hearts that once felt inseparable. In those moments, something begins to build quietly: resentment. At first, it feels small. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, that you'll move past it. But if it's left unspoken, unforgiven, it begins to grow. It creates walls where there used to be openness. It replaces warmth with tension, and slowly, the connection that once felt so natural begins to feel strained. This is where forgiveness becomes essential. Forgiveness is not about pretending that the hurt never happened. It's not about ignoring your feelings or dismissing the pain. It's about making a conscious decision not to let that pain define your relationship. It's choosing love over pride, connection over being right. There was a moment when we found ourselves caught in a cycle of misunderstanding. Words were said that couldn't be taken back, and silence followed that felt heavier than anything we had experienced before. For days, we carried the weight of that distance, each of us waiting, each of us holding on to our own version of the truth. It would have been easy to stay in that place, to protect our egos and let the silence grow. But unconditional love doesn't allow distance to win. Forgiveness became the bridge back to each other. It started with a simple decision, to let go of the need to be right and focus instead on what truly mattered. It meant acknowledging the hurt, but not holding onto it as a weapon. It meant opening the door for understanding, even when it felt difficult. Forgiveness softens the heart. It reminds you that your spouse is not your enemy, even in moments of conflict. It allows both of you to return to a place of connection, where love is stronger than the mistakes that tried to break it. Because without forgiveness, love cannot survive the weight of human imperfection. One of the quiet truths about love is that it never stands still. People change over time, shaped by experiences, challenges, responsibilities, and personal growth. The person you fell in love with at the beginning of your journey will not remain exactly the same, and neither will you. At first, this change can feel unsettling, as if the familiarity you once relied on is slowly shifting beneath your feet. In many relationships, this is where distance begins to grow. Two people who once felt perfectly aligned start moving in different directions, not because they stopped loving each other, but because they stopped growing together. Life pulls them into separate routines, separate priorities, and sometimes even separate emotional worlds. Unconditional love recognizes this reality and chooses a different path. Growing together means making a conscious effort to stay connected through every phase of change. It's about continuing to learn your spouse, even after years of being together. It's about asking questions, listening deeply, and staying curious about who they are becoming. Instead of holding on to who they used to be, you begin to embrace who they are now. There was a time when I noticed this shift happening between us. Our lives had become busy, filled with responsibilities that left little room for meaningful connection. Conversations became shorter, moments together became routine, and without realizing it, we were slowly drifting into separate spaces. It wasn't dramatic, it was subtle, but it was real. That's when I understood that love requires intention, not just history. The memories we shared were not enough to sustain us if we stopped building new ones. So we made a choice, not to let time or change pull us apart. We started creating moments again. Simple things, like sitting together without distractions, talking about our thoughts, our fears, and our dreams. We began supporting each other's personal growth instead of feeling threatened by it. When one of us changed, the other didn't resist. It became an opportunity to reconnect in a deeper way. Growing together also means adapting. It means understanding that your relationship will go through different seasons, and each season requires something new from both of you. Sometimes it requires patience, sometimes effort, sometimes sacrifice. But through it all, it requires one thing above everything else: a shared commitment to keep choosing each other, no matter how much life changes around you.